Zara walked barefoot along the dusty path that led to the village market, the sun hot on her back and her woven basket resting heavily on her hip. Her fingers, rough and calloused from years of work, gripped the basket tightly as she moved between the stalls, calling out to customers. She sold roasted groundnuts, sweetened plantains, and handmade beads, anything that could earn her a few coins to take home. Every day was the same, filled with hard work, sweat, and little rest. Yet, in quiet moments, Zara's mind drifted far from her village. She imagined herself wearing flowing dresses made of silk, living in a house with shining floors, and never worrying about the next meal. Her dreams were not greedy, just hopeful. She wanted more than this life of endless labor and simple meals cooked over a fire. Zara often watched the rich women who visited the market from the nearby city. They arrived in shiny cars, their wrists sparkling with gold bangles and their feet clad in delicate sandals. They laughed easily, their voices light and carefree, untouched by hardship. Zara longed to be like them, to have ease, comfort, and respect. One afternoon, as Zara packed up her store, the village square buzzed with excitement. A convoy of sleek cars rolled in, their engines humming like bees. People gathered to see what was happening. Stepping out from the biggest car was a tall man in a fine white robe and leather sandals that looked untouched by dust. His name was Baraka, a wealthy merchant known for his success in the city. He had come to the village for business, but his arrival changed everything. Baraka's presence was commanding. He had a deep voice, a wide smile, and a way of speaking that made people listen. The villagers greeted him with respect, offering gifts and praise. When Baraka's eyes met Zara's, he paused. Her beauty was simple but striking, dark eyes full of fire, a proud posture, and skin that glowed under the sun. He watched her closely, then approached with the ease of a man used to getting what he wanted. "You must be Zara," he said with a smile that made her heart race. "I've heard of your groundnuts. May I buy some?" Zara nodded, suddenly shy. "Yes, sir. They are fresh today." Baraka took a handful and tasted them. "Delicious. You have skill." He handed her coins, more than the price, and walked away, but not without one last look over his shoulder. From that day, Baraka returned to the village again and again. Each visit, he found time to speak with Zara, bringing her small gifts, bracelets, fabrics, perfumes from the city. He spoke of the life he lived in the city, of grand halls and feasts, of respect and power. Zara listened, wide-eyed, her heart full of wonder. Her friends whispered behind her back, warning her to be careful. "Men like Baraka have many faces," said her best friend Nia. "They give gifts with one hand and take with the other." But Zara was enchanted. She had never been treated this way. Like she mattered. Baraka promised her a life beyond her dreams. "Marry me, Zara," he said one evening under the moonlight. "Come with me to the city. I will give you a life of beauty and comfort. You'll never have to work again." Her mother, old and wise, was not pleased. "Zara, wealth does not mean peace. Know a man's heart before you trust his gold." Zara hesitated. Her heart pulled her toward the future Baraka offered. She wanted to believe love could grow in the arms of a man who gave her everything. So, ignoring the warnings, she said yes. Her wedding was the grandest the village had ever seen. Drums beat, dancers twirled, and feasts stretched into the night. Zara's dress shimmered like the stars, and her smile lit up the village square. She was living the life she knew behind, stepping into a world of promise and wealth. As Baraka led her to his car, the village cheered. Zara waved goodbye, believing she had finally won the life she deserved. But as the car sped toward the city, Zara couldn't shake a feeling, a small voice in her heart, that whispered, "Not all that glitters is gold." Zora's heart raced as the city lights came into view, glowing like scattered stars on the earth. She pressed her face against the car window, her eyes wide with wonder. The buildings rose high into the sky, their glass walls shining in the night. The roads were smooth, the air buzzing with life, and everything felt new, exciting, like the start of a dream. When they arrived at Baraka's mansion, Zora was speechless. The gates were tall, made of iron and gold. The garden inside stretched far, filled with flowers in every color. The house itself was huge, with polished marble floors and soft rugs that cushioned her feet. Chandeliers sparkled above her, and every room smelled of sweet oils and perfume. "This is your home now," Baraka said, wrapping his arm around her. "You deserve only the best." Zora smiled, her heart full of joy. She thought of her village, of long days in the market and dusty roads. Now, she had silk gowns, fine shoes, and maids who brought her anything she wanted. She spent her days shopping in beautiful boutiques, picking out dresses made just for her. At night, she and Baraka attended grand parties, where people admired her beauty and whispered her name with envy. At first, Zara felt like a queen. Baraka introduced her as "my lovely wife" to his friends and business partners. He was proud of her, and she soaked in the attention. People called her lucky. Women stared with wide eyes, and men bowed their heads in respect. Zara believed she had made the right choice. All her hard work and dreams had led her here. But slowly, small things began to trouble her. Baraka controlled what she wore, picking out clothes that showed more of her body than she liked. "You must look your best," he said. "People expect it." When she wanted to visit her old village, he refused. "There is nothing for you there," he told her. "You live in the city now." Zara felt uneasy but told herself it was love. He was simply protecting her, she thought. Besides, he still brought her gifts, necklaces, perfumes, shoes. His affection, though colder, still felt real enough. Then, Baraka began inviting his friends over more often. "They are important men," he explained. "They help me in business. I want you to meet them." At first, Zara was happy to help. She dressed up, greeted the guests, and served them drinks. They complimented her beauty, and Baraka smiled with pride. But the gatherings grew frequent and strange. Baraka started asking her to wear tighter, more revealing clothes. He told her to sit close to his friends, laugh at their jokes, and make them feel welcome, very welcome. Zara felt uncomfortable. The way the men looked at her, the way they whispered to Baraka and laughed, it made her skin crawl. One night, she refused to wear the dress Baraka chose. He frowned, his voice sharp. "Do you think I brought you here to argue with me? I gave you everything, Zara. The least you can do is make my friends happy." Zara stared at him, her heart sinking. The man who once spoke gently now sounded like a stranger. She realized that in this beautiful house, filled with gold and silk, she was not free. She was being shaped into something she didn't want to be, a decoration, a prize. As days turned into weeks, Zara's joy faded. Her laughter, once bright, became rare. She felt trapped behind the mansion walls. Baraka's love had changed into cold demands. And though she wore jewels and lived in luxury, her soul was tired. One evening, as she sat alone in the garden, the wind rustling the flowers around her, she remembered her mother's words. "Zara, wealth does not mean peace. Know a man's heart before you trust his gold." Tears filled her eyes. The dream she had chased was now a cage. But deep in her heart, a small flame still burned, a flame of courage, waiting for the right moment. Zora stood in front of the large mirror in her room, holding the dress Baraka had given her for that night's gathering. It was red, thin as air, and clung to her body like a second skin. She stared at it, heart pounding, feeling more like an object than a wife. A knock on the door pulled her back. "Are you dressed yet?" Baraka's voice came from the hallway, firm, impatient. I don't like this dress," she replied softly. Baraka walked in without waiting. His eyes moved over her, then down to the dress in her hands. "It's perfect," he said coldly. "My friends are coming. You must look unforgettable." Zara looked up at him, searching for the man who once held her hand so gently. But his face was hard. His charm had faded, replaced by cold control. "I don't want to wear this. It's too much," she whispered. Baraka stepped closer, his voice low and sharp. "Do you think I brought you here for nothing? I've given you a life others only dream of. It's time you earned it." Zara felt her stomach turn. The room that once felt like a palace now seemed to close in on her. She clutched the dress and turned away, hiding her tears. That night, she wore the dress. Baraka's friends arrived, men with loud voices and greedy eyes. The air filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and music. Zara moved through the room like a shadow, serving drinks, smiling on command, and listening to crude jokes. One of Baraka's guests, a man with gold rings on every finger, reached out and touched her arm. "You're as lovely as he said," he murmured, his eyes lingering too long. Zara pulled away quickly, her face burning with shame. Baraka laughed. "Don't be shy, Zara. My friends are important to me. Show them your charm." She stood frozen, heart racing. Her hands trembled, but she forced a smile and walked away, hiding in the kitchen. Her chest felt tight, like she couldn't breathe. This wasn't what she wanted. This wasn't what she had dreamed of. Later that night, when the guests had gone, she confronted Baraka. "I am your wife, not a toy for your friends," she said, her voice shaking. Baraka raised his eyebrows, then smirked. "You're mine, Zara. Everything I own, I use as I please. And that includes you." Zara's breath caught. For the first time, she saw the truth clearly. Baraka didn't love her. He didn't respect her. He saw her as a possession, like his cars, his house, his gold. She was a trophy to show off, to use. The next days were worse. Baraka's gatherings became frequent, his demands harsher. Zara had to host guests almost every night. He told her what to wear, how to speak, and how to act. Every time she refused, he reminded her, "I saved you from poverty. I gave you this life. Without me, you are nothing." Zara's heart broke a little more each day. The mansion was no longer a home but a prison. The mirrors showed a woman she no longer recognized, her eyes dull, her smile fake. She stopped dreaming. She stopped hoping. But deep inside, a small voice whispered, "You were not born for this." And one day, she would listen to that voice again. The days in Baraka's mansion passed like a dark cloud, silent, heavy, and full of dread. Zara moved through the grand halls with quiet steps, her eyes lowered, her heart aching. Each night brought more guests, more laughter that didn't reach her ears, more shame. She was tired. Tired of pretending, tired of wearing clothes that didn't feel like her own, tired of being something she wasn't. One evening, as she stood by the window, staring out at the tall gates that locked her in, a thought rose in her heart: "I must leave, or I will lose myself completely." Zara knew it wouldn't be easy. Baraka was powerful, and his eyes were everywhere. The mansion had guards, servants loyal to him, and walls that watched. But she had no choice. Freedom, even for a moment, was worth the risk. During a rare visit to the local market, under heavy watch, Zara saw an old face in the crowd. It was Mama Julia, a wise herbalist from her home village. The old woman's eyes widened in surprise when she saw Zara. My child, you don't look happy, Mama Julia whispered, holding Zara's hand tightly. Zara glanced at the guards, then back at the old woman. I can't talk now. But please, if I come to you, will you help me? Mama Julia nodded, pressing a small patch of herbs into Zara's hand. Always, child. You are not alone. That night, Zara didn't sleep. Her mind was racing. She knew Baraka would travel the next day to a neighboring city for business, a rare chance when the house would be less guarded. She packed a small bag, just a change of clothes and the little jewelry she could carry. As dawn broke, Baraka left, and Zara's heart pounded with both fear and hope. She waited until the servants were busy, then slipped through a side door into the garden. Her feet moved quickly, almost flying across the grass toward a small gate used by gardeners. She had taken the key days ago, hiding it beneath a loose stone. Her hands trembled as she unlocked the gate, but the lock clicked open. She ran. Zara ran through narrow streets, hiding beneath a cloak, her face covered. Every sound behind her made her heart leap. She didn't stop until she reached the edge of the city, where Mama Julia lived in a small hut near the river. The old woman took her in without question, offering food, a place to rest, and kind words. You are brave, Zara, Mama Julia said. But he will look for you. Zara nodded. Let him. I will not go back. Days passed. Zara stayed hidden, helping Mama Julia with her herbs and medicines. For the first time in months, she felt peace. She could breathe. She could laugh, even if softly. The nightmares still came, but they no longer controlled her. But peace, like all good things, was short-lived. Baraka's reach stretched far. He used his money and power to find Zara, offering rewards to anyone who had seen her. One evening, as Zara returned from gathering herbs by the river, she saw a crowd outside Mama Julia's hut. Her heart sank. Baraka stood there, his arms crossed, his face calm, but his eyes cold. I knew you'd come here, he said. Zara's legs refused to move. Fear gripped her. He walked toward her, smiling for the crowd. Come home, Zara. This is not a place for my wife. I'm not your wife anymore, she said, voice trembling. Baraka leaned close. If you don't come now, I'll make life difficult for anyone who helps you. Zara looked at Mama Julia, her eyes full of worry. The villagers stood watching, whispering. She had no choice. Baraka grabbed her arm, pulling her back to the car. As they drove away, he waved at the crowd, pretending everything was normal. Running away. After all I gave you, he sneered. Tears slid down Zara's face, but she didn't speak. Her heart was breaking. But deep inside, she knew this wasn't the end. He could drag her back, but her spirit was not yet crushed. She had escaped once, and she would do it again. Zara sat on the edge of the grand bed, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The soft sheets, the gold-trimmed pillows, the glittering chandelier overhead, none of it brought her comfort. All of it felt cold, like the prison walls that now held her. Baraka had dragged her back to this house like a lost animal. No kind words, no apology. Only threats and a cruel smile. You are mine, he said again and again. You tried to run. But now everyone knows what you are, ungrateful and foolish. No one will help you again. Zara's heart was heavy, but not broken. She had tasted freedom, even if only for a short while. And in that brief moment, she had learned something important. She was stronger than she thought. She looked at herself in the mirror, no longer seeing the scared girl who had once believed in fairy tales. Her eyes were sharper now, her back straighter. She had suffered, yes, but she had survived. And now, she would fight. She started to watch Baraka closely, pretending to be the perfect wife. She smiled when he wanted, laughed at his dull jokes, and played her role well. But inside, she was planning. Every word he said, every move he made, she remembered it. She learned his schedule, the days he traveled, the nights he stayed out late with friends. She noted when the guards were lazy, when the servants took breaks, and which door was never locked. Zora also found small ways to build her strength. She began hiding money, coins from her old jewelry, gifts from Baraka that she quietly sold to a kind shopkeeper who asked no questions. In secret, she practiced sewing with the old maid, Nola, who once lived in the village. Nola, seeing the fire in Zora's eyes, helped her in quiet ways, teaching her skills that could one day earn her a living. "You have a strong spirit," Nola whispered one day. "Don't let it die in this house." Zora nodded, her fingers moving quickly through the fabric. "I won't." Baraka, drunk with power, believed he had won. He flaunted Zora at every party, showing her off like a prized possession. His friends grew bolder, treating her with no respect, knowing Baraka would not stop them. One night, a guest made a disgusting comment about Zora in front of everyone. Laughter followed, and Baraka simply smiled, raising his glass. Zora stood still, her face calm, her heart burning. That night, when the house was silent, Zora walked to the garden and looked at the stars. "I will live again," she whispered. "But this time, I will not be caught." Her chance came when Baraka left for a long business trip in another region. He would be gone for 5 days, enough time, if she moved carefully. Before he left, he grabbed her chin roughly, looking into her eyes. "Don't try anything foolish," he warned. Zora smiled sweetly. "Of course, my love." The moment his car disappeared, Zora sprang into action. She took her hidden coins, packed simple clothes, and left the mansion through the old storage door that led to the back alley. She wore a long scarf to cover her face and moved swiftly. This time, she didn't head to nearby villages. She traveled far, through the forest roads, to a distant town where no one knew her name. She stayed in a small room in a crowded boarding house, the bed hard and the air thick, but she was free. The next day, she walked into a tiny tailor shop and asked for work. The owner, a middle-aged woman named Bija, looked her up and down. "Can you sew?" Zora nodded. "I can learn. I'm not afraid of hard work." Bija gave her a needle and cloth. Zora's hands moved quickly, her stitches neat and strong. "You can start tomorrow," Bija said. Zora smiled for the first time in a long while, a real, warm smile. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But for now, she had her freedom, her strength, and a chance to start again. Zora woke before the sun each morning, her hands already reaching for fabric and thread. The tailor shop was small, with just 3 sewing machines and shelves lined with colorful cloth. But to Zora, it was more precious than gold. Bija, the owner, didn't ask about Zora's past. She only cared about honest work and careful stitches. Zora worked hard, learning quickly. Each dress she sewed, each shirt she hemmed, gave her a sense of pride. Her hands, once used for serving others under Baraka's roof, now built something real, her own life. Her room at the boarding house was small and simple. The bed creaked, the walls were thin, and the nights were noisy with distant music and laughter. But Zora didn't mind. For the first time, she could breathe, think, and move as she pleased. She earned enough to eat, to save a little, and to dream again. Not of mansions or gold, but of peace, and perhaps one day, a small tailor shop of her own. Still, the past had not forgotten her. Whispers followed her like shadows. "That's her," she heard one day at the market. "The wife who ran away from that rich merchant. Ungrateful, they say." Zora kept her head down, her heart tightening. Some people stared, others whispered. A few looked at her with pity, most with judgment. She never answered them. She had no time to fight gossip. But one afternoon, a new fear rose. A customer at the shop, a young man, mentioned that Baraka was visiting a nearby city. Zora's blood ran cold. "What did you say?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Baraka, the merchant. He's in Bora City for trade. You know him?" Zara shook her head quickly. "No. Just heard of him." That night, she didn't sleep. What if he found her again? What if he dragged her back again? Could she survive it one more time? She thought about running. Leaving the town. Disappearing into the countryside. But when she shared her fear with Bija, the older woman looked her in the eye and said, "You've come too far to run again." Zara nodded slowly. She didn't want to live in fear forever. This time, she had to stand her ground. Baraka never came. Perhaps he didn't know where she was. Or perhaps he had found someone new to control. Whatever the reason, weeks passed, and he remained a shadow in her memory. Zara took it as a small victory. She saved more money, and with Bija's help, began to rent a tiny space, a wooden stall near the market. She called it Zara Stitches and started sewing for villagers, simple clothes, but made with care. Word spread. People came. Not because she was once married to a rich man, but because her work was honest and strong. Zara had found her freedom. It was not easy. Some days were hard. Some nights lonely. But it was her life, her choice, her hands shaping her future. And that, to her, was worth everything. Years had passed since Zara first arrived in the small town with nothing but a few coins and the clothes on her back. Now, her tailor shop, Zara Stitches, stood proudly in the heart of the market. The store had grown into a proper shop with wooden walls, a strong roof, and shelves filled with colorful fabric. Every morning, Zara opened the door with steady hands and a peaceful heart. She no longer looked over her shoulder. The fear that once ruled her life had faded, replaced by quiet strength. Customers came from near and far for her work, women wanting dresses for weddings, men seeking shirts for celebrations, children needing school uniforms. Zara stitched each garment with care, her fingers moving with grace and purpose. She was no longer just a survivor. She was a creator, a teacher, a leader. Zara now employed 2 young women from the village, both with dreams of their own. She taught them not just to sew, but to believe in themselves. "Your hands can build your future," she would say. "Never forget your worth." One day, a young woman named Leila walked into the shop. She was full of energy, her eyes shining with hope and curiosity. She admired the dresses and asked Zara for a simple one for her engagement. As Zara took her measurements, Leila sighed. "My fiancé is rich," she said, "and he promises me everything, gold, fine clothes, a big house. But sometimes I wonder if he really cares about me or just wants a wife to show off." Zara paused, her needle still in hand. She looked at Leila for a long moment, remembering her own past, the glittering gifts, the heavy chains behind them. She spoke gently. "Wealth can be beautiful, but it can also be a trap. Look not at a man's money, but at how he treats your soul. No gold is worth losing yourself." Leila nodded slowly, the words sinking deep. She left the shop thoughtful, and Zara prayed silently that the girl would choose wisely. That night, as Zara closed the shop, she sat under the old tree nearby, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. She breathed in the cool air, feeling peace in her bones. Her life had not gone the way she once imagined. She never became the rich, pampered wife she once dreamed of. But what she had now was far more valuable: freedom, dignity, and the power to help others. Zara's story had become a quiet legend in the town, not of shame, but of strength. People no longer spoke of the rich man who tried to break her. They spoke of the woman who rose from pain, built her life from nothing, and gave hope to others. And as the stars lit up the night sky, Zora smiled to herself, knowing she had finally found her true place in the world, not in silk and gold, but in the strength of her hands, the fire in her heart, and the lives she touched with her courage.